welcome back into Clay and Buck. Our buddy Don Jr. is with us now. He was at the incredible, the electric, the historic, and very happy and fun, I might add, and an America Great Making rally at Madison Square Garden. Don, great to have you back on the show. Clay and I couldn't make it, but how was it? Tell everybody listening. We probably have some New York WOR listeners who were there, but for everyone around the rest of the country, tell us about this rally, what it meant to you, and what it felt like to actually be right there in the mix.
It was incredible, guys. It was truly amazing. I drove with my father down to the rally from Trump Tower to MSG, whatever it is, 25 blocks of New York City, just lined with MAGA hats. You sell out Madison Square Garden, and I think they had over 75,000 people, overflow crowd, hanging out outside. So just amazing. It just shows you the sign of the times. I've been doing this for a while now, and my third time around, I could have never even imagined this in 16 or in 20. It's just a very different world out there. People get it. They understand what's happening, and they're sick of it.
So what is the significance here as we come down the home stretch? I know you spoke. Your dad, I thought, was fantastic. I watched it. Elon. I mean, there were a lot of great speakers. But I believe there are going to be rallies, unless I'm wrong, you can correct me, New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, and New Hampshire down the stretch. Those are states that aren't even considered battlegrounds. How good do you expect to do on early voting and election day, and what do those places tell us about what your dad's seeing on the map?
I mean, the early voting numbers have been incredible, but what's best about them is that it's not even our high propensity voters. Those guys still haven't voted yet. They're the people that are going to vote on election day or in the days prior. It's the guys that are the lowest propensity voters or the mid propensity voters that have been out there, basically, putting their ballots in there. So it's not like we just finished early. The numbers are all indicative of we're still going to have a really strong election day. And so when you're looking at these places where we're going into election day, or when early voting starting to end in some of these states and Republicans have a lead in the early vote, but it's not even our reliable voters, that just feels really good. I mean, people just have to get out there. They have to bring their friends. As I said last night, basically you got to get out there and vote like you're the third monkey in line for the ark and it's starting to rain. Once you do that, bring all of your friends. It's so critical for the future, frankly, of Western civilization, not even our country, just Western civilization, the entire world, that we win this. The other side has made it very clear what they stand for, what they believe, and it's none of the things that America has stood for historically.
Don, you're a New York City guy, born and raised. So is your dad. And to go back to hometown, I mean, there's something, I don't know if it's synchronicity or just the full circle nature of coming back here right before the election that I thought was particularly powerful. But I have to say, this stuff about, Donald Trump is in Madison Square Garden. I mean, wasn't probably, I don't know, Beyonce or Taylor Swift there a few months ago, or, I mean, it's like people are in Madison Square Garden all the time. I don't understand. But this narrative, which is overwhelming, that it's a Nazi rally and that your dad, the former president who did a phenomenal job for 4 years and would do a phenomenal job, maybe even more so for the next 4 years, is in any way connected to fascism or Nazism. Like, what do you just honestly, are they just mentally ill? Are they lying? Like, how do you process that?
Well, I mean, I think they're both mentally ill and lying, and they have nothing else. That's the reality. You saw what they tried doing with the Atlantic this week. They're just creating lies because they have nothing to campaign on. It's not like they have successes. They have no success economically. They have no success geopolitically. They've failed time and time again. If Kamala Harris was going to change something, you would have thought she would have maybe started in the last 4 years, where she's been the vice president to the most absentee president in the history of our country. They have nothing else, so they're going to try to latch onto these insane things. I mean, I'm seeing, Israel flags all over the arena. I'm seeing people of all walks of life, people of all races. I mean, if last night was a Nazi rally, it was literally the worst Nazi rally in the history of Nazi rallies. It's so ridiculous. And frankly, it's insulting. They try. I'm watching it on TV today. They're trying to compare it. You know who else once drank a glass of water like Trump drank last night? Like Hitler. I mean, look, it's the same. I mean, Hitler also breathed air. They must be the same. It's a desperate attempt to do anything. And I'm watching the full weight and force of the mainstream media go all in on this narrative, again, because they have nothing else. It's not like they can talk about how great Kamala Harris is. Every time they put her out there, it's a major fail. It's a disaster. I mean, our campaign would pay a lot of money, just keep putting her on the air. Give her a mic, let her speak. The American people hear it every time, and they realize that this is not only an incompetent person, this is not someone who you want picking up the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning when something serious is happening around the world.
We're talking to Donald Trump Jr. I know you're a big sports fan like I am. I think you have seen both of those. I know you saw at least one. Texas Tech has a kicker, makes a kick, and immediately lifts his shirt to show that MAGA is written underneath his uniform on the T-shirt that he's wearing. Last night, huge game for the audience anyway. Dallas Cowboys against San Francisco 49ers. Nick Bosa, in the post-game interview, star defensive lineman for the 49ers, playing for a San Francisco team, has his MAGA hat on. It feels to me like lots of athletes in particular, but I think it's just directly connected to men, are just over it, and they're not going to be silenced anymore. Do you feel that? Because I can tell you, you know this, privately, a lot of people in sports have come up to me for a long time and said, hey, you're 100% right, Trump's the guy. You experience that too. But it feels like a lot of dudes out there are just like, I'm over pretending that I'm not for Trump, and it's becoming more explicit in their endorsement. Are you feeling that, seeing it too?
100%. I mean, it's not even like, there's not even the social consequence anymore. Like, guys are happy to be open about it. They're okay there. It's not just happening in sports. I'm seeing it, on college campuses. I'm seeing it all over the place. Demographics that it would have never otherwise, it would have never been as socially acceptable to support Trump, even if you were a Trump supporter. They're just doing it out in the open right now. Supporting Trump, is counterculture. Now it's cool. You're a badass if you're actually doing these things. These guys are stars. They don't care anymore because they understand what's at stake. So again, it's not just the athletes. I think that's been going on for quite some time, but that they're willing to get vocal, that college kids, young demographics. I think some of our biggest gains have been, frankly, with Gen Z people. I was, college parties at ASU, 1,500 kids show up with a MAGA hat on. It's just an entirely different world. It's amazing to see it. It's very palpable. It's not just a select few. It's all over the place. So it's really special to see this going on right now.
Now, I don't want to count any chickens before they hatch. We're speaking to Don Jr., everybody, Donald Trump Jr. But let's assume for a second that the right decision is made here. Your dad gets 4 more years. Can you just take us a little bit into the selection of personnel this time around and the team he's going to build around him? I mean, this is one area. It came up in the Rogan podcast. Your dad said, I had some great picks. I had some not so great picks. I had to fire some people. I had to bring some new people on. This time around, people say, personnel is policy, right? I mean, this time around, what is that team formation going to look like? And how do you think your dad's focus is going to shift or hone in on building the best team of top-level people around him for the second term?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. Last time around, I think it was. He the first night he had ever spent in Washington D.C. was when he moved into the White House. So you had no knowledge, you had no institutional base, you had none of that. This time around, that's very different. You know who the guys are that are the guys that will deliver for the president. The guys that don't just think they know better. That there's some sort of unelected official that's going to decide what the duly elected president of the United States is thinking, and decide, what, we don't agree with that, so we're just going to do it our way. It's just so different. So I think from a personnel standpoint, those things, that's gone. I'm glad he said that because I agree with what he said on Rogan. That was one of the mistakes last time, but you wouldn't have known, right? You had to place, thousands of people in jobs. You assume because they have an R next to your name, they're going to be on your team. They're not. This time around, that's not going to happen. But also this time around, you have something totally unique, right? You have a guy like an Elon. Hey, I want to work on government efficiency. I mean, a guy that's like the Einstein.
Is he? Wait, can I, Don? I gotta. Is he really gonna? If we get Trump in, is Elon really gonna do this government efficiency thing? I mean, is that? It sounds amazing, but I'm like, is this
100%? I mean, who wouldn't want that? My father certainly wants it. Elon's offered to do it. You have that. You have a guy like an RFK. Let him handle the health thing. We may not agree with him on everything, but like in health, whether it's the FDA, whether it's HHS, all of these things, like we can expose so much of that corruption. I mean, this is a true unified party. People from all walks of life, people from different political alliances that do have really great skill sets on so much. I want to unleash all of that. So, we traded Liz and Dick Cheney for Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. I mean, these guys can really change the world for the better. So I think it's just an incredible opportunity. Frankly, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity politically to really bring in people who can effectuate real change and who have the skill set to actually do it. And with a guy like my father who's going to empower them to do those things.
Couple of questions here to finish with you. We're talking to Don Jr. Appreciate him taking the time after speaking at Madison Square Garden. Where are you going to be on election night? And if I gave you right now a magic wand and you can say, I get to see one state's returns, what state would that be? Would it be Pennsylvania? What to you? I know there's a lot of linchpin states out there, but what would you want to be able to see right now, 8 days out, if you could?
I'm in Pennsylvania right now. That's where I'm doing like 6 events here today. So, obviously that's, not just the Keystone State in name. I think it's a Keystone State in this election. I think that's so fundamentally critical. But, the reality is when I look at some of these early vote numbers, I mean, the stuff I'm seeing out of Arizona, the stuff I'm seeing out of Nevada, the stuff I'm seeing out of Georgia, I mean, all of these swing states, I mean, it just looks really good. Now, I can't account for the nonsense. I can't account for the games, the cheating, the this, that, and the other. I mean, I always say to win by 1, we got to win by 5. That's the reality. That's how the Democrats play, and they're desperate, so I'm sure they'll be playing extra hard this time around. But I think, if I had to pick one state, obviously I think Pennsylvania is probably that state.
And then are you going to be at Mar-a-Lago? What's the plan on election night? I can't even imagine. This will be your 3rd different election night. I know the stress, the chaos, the craziness. Yeah. What's your plan for that night?
Yeah, I imagine I'll be on the road until the very last second, until the last polls close, and then I'll somehow figure out how to get down to Mar-a-Lago. But we're leaving nothing on the field. We're going to be out there, entirely, until the last second. We're all in. We're going to get this thing done, and yeah, I'll end up there that night to be with my family. But right now it's just divide and conquer. We're split up. We're all over the place. We don't do the, hey, I want to be around my dad so I can be in the selfie for some sort of picture later on. We're splitting up and just covering everything as aggressively.
Do you guys make Barron bend down in family photos now? I'm just wondering. Like he's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar height.
It's interesting. I'm like the runt of I'm 6'1", 195, and I'm like the runt in my family. It's kind of embarrassing. But no, it's all good. We're looking forward to just being together for it.
Just one more time. You're in Pennsylvania right now. Your dad is going to be at the huge Ohio State-Penn State game, which if you're a Big Ten football fan, may be the biggest game of the year. I'm sorry, Michigan Wolverine fans, because you guys are not very good this year. I think it's the biggest game in the Big Ten this year. That should be an incredible atmosphere, I would think. I know he was just at the Steeler game, but Saturday in Happy Valley, in the biggest battleground state out there for the biggest game of the year, that should be electric.
I think it's going to be awesome, and again, you see it. I mean, you see it at the Steelers game this last weekend. Of course, the major corporate media will try to cover it up, but the stadium in Pittsburgh. This is not exactly what we call the heart of red part of Pennsylvania. I mean, this was a very Democrat town, and an entire stadium just going nuts for Trump being there. There's something going on. There's something in the air. You feel it. You see it. Everyone knows it. Whatever games they're going to try to play, I think a big tenet of the Democrat in their games is that, people have to still believe that it's real when they're pulling off these things. I think that was a big part of why they switched out Joe Biden for Kamala Harris. They thought that maybe it'd be more believable until they gave her the mic and realized probably actually not the case. So I think that's going to be an awesome game, and I think it's going to be really cool to see just the crowd response. And again, that's going to be a young college crowd in a college town. Again, not exactly a conservative place, and I think you're going to see them go absolutely wild. It's going to be awesome.
I'll be there, too. I think that's 100% Dave McCormick. We need to get him over the finish line, too. We appreciate the time. Great job yesterday at the rally, and good luck over the next 8 days.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good talking to you.
That's Donald Trump Jr. He was talking, Buck, about being at the Big Ten game between Ohio State and Penn State. I'm going to be up there helping Dave McCormick hopefully get over the finish line. Unfortunately, Buck, I did not get us over the finish line with PrizePicks. Took it on the chin. Every now and then it happens. We did not get the win, but I'm going to come back
Wait.
Even
How
better.
many did you get right? You gotta eat your peas here, my friend. 1 for 4, Clay?
1 for 4 on the prize picks. Now, you wouldn't
rough.
have won entirely by fading me, but we took it on the chin. This was a walloping. This was a shellacking. This was not a positive performance by Team Good Guy, a.k.a. Clay Travis, PrizePicks picks. But you can still get signed up. You can still get $50. We've won 2 10-to-1s. Want to get that third? PrizePicks.com. My name, Clay, C-L-A-Y. Get hooked up right now. PrizePicks.com. My name, Clay. You get $50 when you play $5. You can play in Florida. You can play in Georgia, Texas, California, 30-plus states. Get hooked up today. Use my name, Clay, for $50. PrizePicks.com. Code Clay.